it so they can't see us on the.
Well, you two behave over there. You two behave over there.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I'm going to call to order the meeting the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners, September 17th. I'm going to turn this over to County Manager Sauer to do the introductions after we have the prayer and pledge. But for those that are tuning in, we don't always stream 3 o'clock special meetings early, but we felt this information needed to be out there, broadcast, kind of for those that wanted to be up to date on what was happening with the water system, with the fluoride issues, and going forward. So we do have some incredible speakers here today to educate us all. But for the moment, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair for prayer and pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, first of all, we come to give you thanks. Thank you for this day that you have made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. Father God, we ask you to settle down with us this evening to conduct county business. Father God, we ask you to lay your hands upon this county water and county water system and everyone that's been working on it. Father God, we ask all these things in your name, the name above all names, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And now I'm going to turn it over to County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got a full plate for the board this evening. And without further ado, I'd like you to know that Leo Green III is with us, and Mr. Tart from Green Engineering, Dr. Richard Spruill is with us from GMA, and we've also invited our advocate in Raleigh, former Senator Bob Steinberg, to be here so that he can carry some of this knowledge up to the state capitol for us. So, Rodney, floor is yours. And we've got a microphone if you need.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the board, and staff, and guests that are here today. This is truly a milestone point in time for Gates County in that over the last 12 months or so, I think this all started with news back in August of 24 that you were notified by Senator Haney that you had a groundwater problem with respect to high concentration of fluoride, and that concern manifested itself into the board being concerned about neurodevelopment and cognitive impairment for young children, and that's some of what the impact is. And out of that study that was made by the National Health Organization, it was determined that Gates County ranked number 6 in the nation and number 1 in North Carolina. So that brought about a lot of concern, and what could we do about it? So from there, we met last February, I think February 16th. We had a Right Linkley workshop, and Dr. Spruill was invited in, and we talked a little bit about the geology, and we talked a little bit about some funding that we would try to go after. And during that time, the county had already gone through Senator Haney and was trying to get some money to do some additional test wells. And we knew that if we were going to get into doing some test wells, there were some things that we needed to determine out of that to look for the highest quality water we could find, if it was there, better than what you're pumping right now, and the volume of it. And so we knew that we needed GMA, groundwater management people, to come in with that. So, since that time, we've been busy. We put together a action plan. It's a draft. Just note that on the front of it's draft. Next slide, please. I'll get it. I think I can do it. Down. Okay. So, today, I would like for us to accomplish these six topics right here. I'm giving you just shortly some introductory remarks about where we started, where we at now, and what I'd like to see out of this. Dr. Sproul is going to make a very detailed and lengthy presentation to get you back up to speed on what the geology and the formation of the ground we stand on here through Gates County and what's down there and what's contributing to this fluoride problem. So you're going to leave here today with a lot of knowledge about groundwater and the importance of it. And after we leave that, I'm going to go into giving the board was strong about if we won't going to be able to get funds in a timely manner to do test wells, then let's look at what we have available. So we went after some ag wells. We'll talk to you about that. And then one of the most important things is the Bullock Gates County policy on public health. And I will cover that. And I would hope when we leave here today, Madam Chairman, member of the board, that you will have defined what your public health policy is going to be and have taken a position on that. And out of that policy, the direction of where you want to, at the level of health that you want to achieve in Gates County, then that direction will hem around your policy and where you want to treat your water to what acceptable level to be protective of public health. We tell you a little bit about pilot work that we've done, and then at the end, just a short calendar of planning forward. So with that, I won't take any questions right now. We'll listen to Dr. Sproul. He's got a lengthy presentation. And when Dr. Sproul, he'll be fielding questions, and probably if you raise his hand, he'll answer one in between slides. And then after Dr. Sproul finishes up, we'll come back to our shorter presentation and what we're trying to achieve here today. Dr. Sproul?
Thank you, Rodney. Mr. Forsyth, is there room for this right here? Sure. Thank you, Rodney.
Do you need this yet?
Yeah, in a minute.
Okay, it's turned on, so you got it.
Okay, I'll leave it right there. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm not good at standing next to that microphone. I'm going to speak loudly. Can you guys out there hear me okay? Well, look, can I ask you first to pull up this geological time scale? I give everybody a copy. It's on the desk there, I think. I'd like to talk about it for just a minute because I'm going to be using some words in my presentation that you commonly hear up in this part of the world, like Cretaceous. You've heard that word, and Eocene. This is a geological timescale according to geologists. We believe that the Earth is about 4,600 million years old, or 4.6 billion years old. And we think that starting around 542, will you find that number 542? Life as we know it today started to proliferate on Earth. And so that starts a period called the Cambrian. So will you follow along with me? The geological time periods that geologists use all the time are Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Mississippian, Pennsylvanian, Permian. That time frame from 241 back to 542 we call the Paleozoic, the time of ancient life on Earth. And beginning at the end of the Permian, things really changed, and dinosaurs started to proliferate on Earth, and it started the Mesozoic period that goes Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. You're going to hear a lot today about Cretaceous and Cretaceous aquifer, so I want to make sure you understand the meaning of the word. I'd like for you to do some math for me, if you will. You got your pens ready? The Cretaceous started 146 million years ago. We believe it ended 66 million years ago. So how long did the Cretaceous time period last? This is Gazendas. We're doing Gazendas, right? 2 Gazendas, 4 2 times. How long? 80 million years. The Cretaceous time period lasted 80 million years. That's hard to comprehend, isn't it? In our short lifetime, 80 million years. Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. At the end of the Cretaceous, the dinosaurs went extinct, and then into the period of Mesozoic, middle life. And then this recent time frame started at about 66 million years ago, and we subdivide this even more because we know more about it into what we call epochs. And the epochs are Paleocene, Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene, Pliocene, Pleistocene, and then Holocene or recent. A lot of people call the Pleistocene, the Holocene, the Ice Age, as some of you may well know. I'm going to be talking to you about Eocene, the Eocene time frame. Do you find that? How long was Eocene? How long did it last? Started 55.8 million years ago and ended 33 million years ago. That's about 20-some million years for the period of time called the Eocene. With me so far? Great. So I want you to keep those numbers in mind. Cretaceous, about 80 million years long, started 146 million years ago and ended 66. And so I'm going to be showing you some cross-sections that show the Cretaceous aquifers that underlie Gates County, and Eocene and younger aquifers that also underlie Gates County. All right, I'll come back to that. Next thing I want to show you is the geological map of the Great Tar Heel State. That's not a university statement at all. We just call it the Great Tar Heel State, right? And so I want to emphasize to you that North Carolina has 3 provinces that are clearly shown on this geological map. You see this long line running from here to here, from northeast to southwest. That's called the Brevard Fault Zone. And there the rocks are uplifted to form the province called the Appalachians. From here all the way to I-95, roughly, that runs right along this line and then down like this. It's the Piedmont of North Carolina. The Piedmont of North Carolina I'm going to come back to you and then east of that line is the coastal plain of North Carolina. So the coastal plain really begins at I-95. Okay? The Piedmont of North Carolina, look at the complexity of colors here. The Piedmont of North Carolina is composed of igneous and metamorphic rocks that are mostly Paleozoic in age. Paleozoic, how old are they? They're older than 251 million. Some of them are 600 million years old. And some rocks up here in the mountains are 1 billion years old. I want you to know that these rocks that make up the Piedmont of North Carolina are really diverse, and they have a lot of interesting minerals in them. This area, the Piedmont, has been uplifted for the last 300 million years, and all the rocks have eroded away, and all that material is out here in the coastal plain and we live on it. So the eroded material from the Piedmont of North Carolina makes up the coastal plain. I'm going to show you in a few minutes that the coastal plain thins out to nothing at I-95 roughly. And we built it there because it's pretty flat. And it's easy to build a road when it's flat, but we had the rocks from the Piedmont to crush up and make the roads. So I-95 really marks the boundary between Piedmont and coastal plain. The coastal plain thickness of all this stuff that weathered off the mountains in the Piedmont is 800 feet thick in Greenville. It's 10,000 feet thick at Cape Hatteras. And it's 40,000 feet thick off the coast about 30 miles. It's thickens to the east and it dips to the east and it gets incredibly thick as we go out towards the east. We're going to learn about those different aquifers and how that relates to what you have here in the county. I emphasize this because some of the minerals that are in rocks in the Piedmont that weathered away are now out here in the coastal plain. And some of those rocks have fluorine in them. And so when those were weathered away and redeposited out here in the coastal plain, and then groundwater percolates through them, the groundwater can dissolve away the fluorine and put it in the water. The fluorine here is naturally occurring. It's not related to any industrial activity. It's not related to any agricultural activity in my mind. It's related to the natural minerals that occur in the subsurface that came from the Piedmont. I brought some for your viewing pleasure today, okay? A couple of special ones I'd like to pass around. The first one is a mineral called fluorite, F-L-U-O-R-I-T-E. Fluorite is calcium and fluorine. It's really, really enriched in fluorine. And there's a lot of this mineral in North Carolina. I'll pass it around. Scott's already seen them. He's already had his lesson.
Is that why you did twice? Is that
Sometimes the fluorite, it's called fluorite, occurs in big crystals. Here's a crystal of fluorite. It's half calcium and abundant fluorine in this mineral. So if it weathers away and it gets dissolved by groundwater, it can put fluorine in the groundwater. But the most, well, I want just one or two more. This is a really heavy one. I'll start down this end and go in the opposite direction. It's heavy because it has lead in it. But look at the blue mineral in that rock. It's also fluorite that's really enriched in fluorine. My opinion is that the fluoride problem that we have here in the county is directly related to weathering of the Piedmont and then interaction between groundwater and these kinds of minerals. But the main mineral that's in the Piedmont of North Carolina that produces fluorine in groundwater is mica. This is a mineral called muscovite. You've heard about it. You put it in paint. You put it in insulation. All sorts of things like that. This is a potassium-rich mineral that also has fluorine in it called mica. When we drill a well out here in the coastal plain, I'll show you this, Mr. Roundtree. See the little speckles in my hand? Yes. So it doesn't take much to break it down into small grains. Mr. Forsythe, you can see the little speckles. And so when groundwater interacts with this, it liberates fluoride. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So I want you to know that that it's naturally occurring and it's the result of erosion of the Piedmont minerals out here and transport out here into the coastal plain where they interact with groundwater. All right? That's what I wanted to say about my geological map, although I'd like to say more. So, on to groundwater. These are magnets of some kind. I need flipping help here. I'm going to show the back of this before I go to my slides. Okay. What do I do here? Okay. You got it? You lose. I want to draw, I've drawn a little cartoon here, and I want you to see the relationship between something that you see every day out here in the county and the groundwater system. And that is what smart aleck people call an aerial hydrosphere. We call it a water tank, right? So you have a water tank in this area. Can everybody see? And this circle with the legs on it represents my water tank. And so, you know, we find some source of water, we pump it up into the tank until the tank is full. Okay? And then we connect the water in the tank to piping underground that we call the water main. And so people can go, if they live in this area, and they can go in and they can tap the water main. I better put a meter in there so Gates County can make some money. They tap into the water main, and that's their source of water. Well, I want to ask you this question. What if I did this? If I came to here, and I put in just a pipe, real tall, like this, and I open it up to the water main, what's the height to which water will rise in that pipe? Forsythe is he's laughing at me. What's the height to which water will rise in that pipe if nobody's using the water and the water level in this system?
The level of the tank. Yeah. The water pressure level. Yeah.
Okay, so people call that the potentiometric surface. The water has the potential to rise to that surface, so we call it the pressure surface or the potentiometric surface. Okay? What makes this work is that the water is confined by a pipe, and the pipe itself is impermeable. It doesn't let the water pass through the pipe, right? So the water main itself is composed of a pipe that lets the water reside in the pipe, but the water can't escape the pipe. So the water is pressurized in this pipe, and the pressure's all the way to there. All right. So let's say that a whole bunch of people move into Gatesville, and everybody taps into the water main, and they come home at 5 o'clock, and everybody starts using the water at once. What happens to the pressure surface? The pressure surface, which is a horizontal line, that's the potentiometric surface, starts to do this. It'll lower over each one of the houses, and the pressure will be reduced. And so we know we only need a little bit of pressure, so we create a whole lot more so we can stand that reduction in pressure. And if I put a whole bunch of houses here, the pressure might drop something like that, and it will cause a big cone-shaped feature in the potentiometric surface called the cone of depression. Make sense? I want to try to convince you that an inclined aquifer, an inclined rock layer out in the coastal plain is kind of like this. So suppose I had a layer underground like this that had some clay on the top, and some clay on the bottom. And in the middle is something like maybe this rock, called limestone, from the Castle Hayne of Eocene age. Eocene, got it? Watch this. Air's coming out. This thing will transmit incredible amounts of water. So suppose I put this limestone in here and put clay on the top and clay on the bottom, and then let it rain and let it fill up with water. What's the height to which water would rise if I drill a well down into this thing? Well, it'd be the height over here. See it? Do you see it? So the potentiometric surface is much like the potentiometric surface as the limestone from the Castle Hayne. The potentiometric surface that you see in an elevated storage tank is a lot like the potentiometric surface that I'm going to show you in my groundwater studies. Okay? All right. I'm ready for my slides. Are you ready? Thank you. I started off with just a little cartoon. I want you to think this is a laughing matter for me. This is a very serious matter, this issue of dealing with fluoride in your groundwater system. I take it really seriously. So where are my slides? They're coming. They're coming. Do you want me to move this out of the way so people can see better or not? It's okay. It's good. Not for the time being. Well, let's leave it here. Okay, here we go. I want to start off with this Google Earth image of this area. And if it's okay with all of you commissioners, I'm going to, instead of trying to point to the screen, can I just point here with my pointer? This is the area of Gates County right up in here. And this is the headwaters of which river? The Tuan River flowing into the Albemarle and flowing out towards the ocean. There's a really important feature that you can see right here. Is it right? Ooh, wait a minute, how about this? See this feature right here?
Yes.
Runs all the way down here. That's called the Suffolk Scarp. The Suffolk Scarp passes up through which town? Suffolk, hence its name. And the Suffolk Scarp is a really prominent feature that runs on the eastern side of Gates County. And it represents a time in the geological past when the ocean came all the way to right there. This is a sand dune complex, not unlike the Outer Banks sand dunes today. So we call it the Suffolk Scarp. You have it in the eastern part of the county. It's a really important geological feature, but I don't know if you can see that on this map. I tried to show it. Where's Gatesville? Is that it right there? See it, Gatesville?
Yes.
I wanted to show that, and I also wanted to show this town right here called Sunbury. I want you to get the perspective of where those two towns are relative to each other, because I'm going to split the earth in a minute, lift it up and look at it from the side, in some cross sections, and the geologists who did this work put in two sections that pass right through Sunbury, not through Gatesville, but through Sunbury. And so Sunbury is about right there, and Gatesville is about right down in there. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that when I show these cross sections in a little while, the cross sections will intersect at Sunbury, but it's going to tell us a whole lot about the area around Gatesville as well. All right. Look, don't hesitate to ask me any questions at any time. Here's just a generalized cross section of the state of North Carolina. I mentioned the Blue Ridge that starts right there at Old Ford, up to Black Mountain and on further up into the Appalachians, really old rocks. The Piedmont of North Carolina composed of all kinds of igneous and metamorphic rocks that produce the minerals out in the coastal plain that are responsible for the fluoride issue we're going to discuss today. And then starting right at the fall line, the last place where we find waterfalls, about I-95, is an eastward dipping, eastward thickening sequence of sand, silt, and clay, and an occasional limestone. Where's the limestone? Thank you. And an occasional limestone called Castle Hayne. You've all heard about the Castle Hayne at the phosphate mine at Aurora. It's an impressive limestone unit. So all of those layers dipping out to the east achieve a thickness right there at Cape Hatteras, as I pointed out, of 10,000 feet. See that number, 11,000 right there? The thickness of the coastal plain cover. I'm now going to focus just on the coastal plain, not the Piedmont, although I might say a word or two about it with respect to fluoride in just a couple of minutes. So here's the deal. All these layers out here get deeper and thicker as you approach the ocean. They were all deposited at the bottom in Cretaceous time and younger. So 140 million years and younger, all of these sedimentary layers were deposited. Cretaceous at the bottom and younger towards the top. If I were to split the coastal plain of, I got too many of these. Well, you have to give me back. I can't have them both. One, take that out. Can't have them both. If I were to split the earth from about Fayetteville out to just south of the Neuse River, A to B, and then lift it up and look at it from the side. There's A and there's B. This scale, if you can see it or not, goes down to about 1,500 feet. That's about 700 feet, and there's sea level. Sea level's about right there. With me so far? These rocks down here make up the bedrock. They're the same kind of rocks that you find in the Raleigh and west all the way to Charlotte. They're the igneous and metamorphic rocks, and the coastal plain cover sits directly on top of those. I want you to see if we can think about the aquifers and their names sitting on top of the bedrock. It starts down here, lower Cape Fear, then there's a clay. Oh, there's a pipe, and so that thing might be pressurized. Upper Cape Fear, there's the clay that's sitting on top of it, the red thing. Black Creek Aquifer, PD Aquifer. Look at that, that's probably 1,000 feet of sand, silt, and clay of Cretaceous age deposited during the 80 million years of the Cretaceous time frame. One sitting one on top of the other. And it reflects a time when sea level was rising and sea level was falling. And sea level was falling over that 80 million year time frame. Sitting on top of the Cretaceous aquifers up through the PD is an aquifer right there, often called the Beaufort Aquifer, and then this younger one up here is called the Castle Hayne. Look how thick it is and how much it thickens to the east, but notice that it pinches out as you go to the west. We don't even find it in Greenville. It pinches out at the little town of Pactolus before we get to Greenville. And that's important up here because you don't have the Castle Hayne here in any significant thickness. I'll show you in a few minutes that it pinches out before you get this far west. And in this diagram, the aquifers I have named up here, the most important one is called the Yorktown Aquifer, and it's named for really thick exposures at Yorktown on the James River there. And so Cretaceous aquifers, Eocene aquifers, and Miocene aquifers, looking at the time scale. Do you see it? Cretaceous, 180 million, 150 million years old, 40 million years, 2 to 5 million years up here at the top. Stacked one on top of the other. All right, any questions so far? Oh, we gotta go back. One of the most important things I want to talk to you about today is the position of the boundary between freshwater and naturally occurring saltwater in the subsurface. And that's shown by this green line. The green line shows the boundary between freshwater over here and salty water naturally occurring in the sediments to the east. That's called the saltwater freshwater interface. In this diagram, it's relatively simple looking, that we know where it is, but it's incredibly complex, as I'll show you in a couple minutes. So here's an important point. I drilled a well into the Castle Hayne right here, and it was fresh, and I kept drilling, and I drilled into the PD, and it was salty, and I drilled into the Black Creek, and it was fresh, and I drilled into the Cape Fear, and it was salty. The boundary between saltwater and freshwater is amazingly complex. I mention this to you because in the eastern part of this county, your Sunbury aquifer is salty mostly. That's really a really important point. So when I show you the cross sections in a few minutes that are more complex than this, you'll recognize this boundary between saltwater out near the ocean and freshwater further inland. We define this boundary at 250 parts per million chloride. You can taste it. You would find it offensive at 250. Over here, it has the salinity of seawater. So it gets really, really, really salty really quickly away from this 250 number that I'm showing you in this diagram. Now we'll stop for just a second to refresh your memory. From the land surface downward, for about 10 or 15 feet here in Gates County, you might find a sand deposit. And most of you have ever gone outside and dug a post hole, or you just use a shovel and dig a hole a few feet, you'll notice all of a sudden the water starts to pour into that hole. We call that the unconfined aquifer system because it does not have a clay on the top of it. It's the unconfined aquifer, or we'll often call it the water table aquifer. So if you drill a little water table well 8 or 9 feet thick or deep, you'll find that the water will fill up in that well or that hole to that level. We call that the water table. But below that, there are layers of clay and then layers of material that transmit a whole bunch of water. So there's this concept I'm trying to get you to think about of something that is confined by a clay. It's like the pipe. There's the upper pipe, there's the inside of the pipe, and there's a lot of water that can flow in this material called the confined aquifer. It's confined by the presence of this clay. If you drill a well down into this confined aquifer, and can you see the little opening right there? That's where the water comes in. If you only let the water come in right here, the water in this well will rise above the top of the aquifer at the well. In some places, it'll actually flow freely. Down the Hilton Head, the water will shoot 140 feet in the air if you drill one of these aquifers. So the height to which water will rise in this well is called, oh, you heard it, the potentiometric surface. So the water will rise all the way to there in this particular case I'm trying to show you. So these are called confined aquifers. The Cretaceous aquifers are all confined. The Castle Hayne aquifer is confined. The Yorktown aquifer is confined. All of those deep aquifers in this county are confined, and if you drill in them, the water will rise above the top of the aquifer at each one of those wells that tap those particular deep aquifers. Cretaceous all the way up through Miocene. All right, that was a quick review. I couldn't help but show you this map because this is the way geologists think. Geologists think about what North America looked like in Cretaceous time. Look, 75 million years ago, this is what the eastern United States and central U.S. looked like. We're absolutely convinced of it because we can go to this area and we can find rocks of and layers of Cretaceous age. But notice this. What did North Carolina look like in Cretaceous time? It was underwater. The sea had advanced up onto the continent, and over an 80 million year time period, the sea regressed and the sea transgressed, the sea regressed and the sea transgressed. And each time it did, it produced one of these layers, Lower Cape Fear, Upper Cape Fear, Black Creek, and PD over an 80 million year time frame. I find this to be absolutely fascinating. That's what North America looked like in Cretaceous time. So let's go back and review then the Cretaceous aquifers that formed during that time period. Lower Cape Fear, Upper Cape Fear, Black Creek, and PD. Cretaceous aquifers. You know what the word means now, right? That time frame at the end of the period of dinosaurs that ended about 66 million years ago. Impossible to comprehend, really. Let's move forward. In Eocene time, this limestone called the Castle Hayne limestone was formed on the east coast of the United States, and that's what it looked like. It formed in eastern North Carolina, almost all the way to Raleigh, and it has since been eroded away, and it gets thick out towards the coast. And the PCS mine that you've heard about, or Nutrient at Aurora, gets 190 feet down and is 300 feet thick. It gets real thick and real deep as you go out towards the coast. Okay? As you get towards the coast, it's also salty because remember, close to the coast is the boundary between saltwater and freshwater. So the Castle Hayne that's how it formed back 40 million years ago in Eocene time. So here we go. Let's see. I think I've got a fly in. Look, my daughter helped me do that. There's the Castle Hayne aquifer. Notice that it pitches out as you go inland. It went much further inland, but it's been eroded away, and it gets real thick, but it's salty out as you get out towards the coast. With me so far? So Cretaceous and then Eocene aquifer sitting on the top, and then sitting up on the top of that, which I'm not going to show you in detail now, is a Yorktown aquifer that's up here and extends all the way across the top of most of these deeply buried Cretaceous aquifers. So think about this. Lower Cape Fear, Upper Cape Fear, Black Creek, Castle Hayne, Yorktown aquifer. No questions so far? Great. Cretaceous aquifers. Suppose I put in a well in the Cretaceous aquifer, and I just let the water come in, say right there in the Cape Fear aquifer, I let it come in right there in the Black Creek aquifer. And that well doesn't produce enough water to make me happy. I need some more wells. Which way would you go? Would you go this way or that way to put in additional wells?
Left.
Why? get away from the salt water, right? So this is very generic, very simply shown. Now, I wouldn't want to go over here because I'm getting really close to the saltwater interface. So when we're dealing with water supply wells out here in the coastal plain, and we know where the saltwater freshwater interface is, and we want more wells, we should go away from the saltwater interface to the best of our knowledge. Pretty straightforward. I would be remiss if I didn't show you this level of complexity out here in the coastal plain. If you were to split North Carolina from, the East Coast from Florida all the way up through North Carolina and all the way up to just east of us and along the Albemarle system, so there's Gates County about right there. You lift it up and look at it from the side, you see something really interesting. See this letter here, MCPH? That thing is called the Mid-Carolina Platform High. And so so far today I've been leading you down the Primrose Path. I'm trying to convince you that from the Piedmont to the coastal plain, the aquifers all incline out towards the east. And they generally do. But it's more complex than that because the bedrock is folded up and down like this. The rocks like in the Piedmont are folded up and down. And so there are these things called embayments, the low spots, and platform highs called the high spots. And the biggest one is right there in Wilmington, and it's called the Mid-Carolina Platform High. So I'm going to show it to you. Look, I'm going to split the earth all the way along the east coast, all the way up to the Albemarle. It looks like this in real general terms. So I won't spend too much time on this, but look, this stuff is the bedrock. See how high the bedrock is right beneath Wilmington? Well, what impact does that have? Things like the Castle Haynes, which is this unit right here, pinches out, and you don't find it on the east side of Wilmington. It's pinched out. That's important. We're most concerned about things up here. Look, as you go to the north, towards Gates County, look what happens. The bedrock is really deep, and so the aquifers are real thick up here. And as you leave that and go up towards Gates County, the aquifers get thinner again. As you're coming out of something called the Albemarle embayment. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just want you to know there's a lot of complexity in the groundwater system that we ought to think about. All right, here we go again. You recognize this particular slide. Cretaceous aquifers, Eocene aquifers, Miocene aquifers called the Yorktown. Now, which wells, you have here in this community 3 wells. This is a figure that was put together by a combination of work at colleges at GMA and Green Engineering. I drew it on a piece of paper and they made it pretty. This is the Green Engineering response to my hand-drawn system. I'm hoping that you can see it from where you're sitting. I won't stand in front of you. I want to point out a lot of things about this particular slide. I don't want you to focus on these 2 things off to this side. I want you to focus on well 1A, well 2, and well 3. Now I'm trying to give you a sense of how these wells are constructed. Your wells 1A, 2, and 3. These little horizontal lines right here represent what we call well screens, and those are the depths where we let water come into the well, the screens. So let's see if we can figure this out. What's that depth right there? Who can see it? I can. 200?
146.
146. Let's remember that number. And in well 1A, there's another screen right there. This is about at
224.
Thank you, 224. And then at well 1A, there's another screen way down here. Where is it?
300.
300. Okay. So there must be 3 different aquifers there. 3 different aquifers that we're tapping in that one well. I'll come back to that in just a minute. Well 2 has a screen right here, kind of like the screen at 100 or so feet. Agreed? Mm-hmm. They didn't put in a middle screen here, but look, it has a deep screen. And this must represent an aquifer in depth here. Well 3, you're really super well here in your system, doesn't have the upper screen, the middle screen, and just has the lower screen. All right, so far? So you may remember that you guys funded a project wherein a local driller from this area came in, Justin, and they attacked this middle screen to see if they could get some more water out of it. And indeed they did, and by really going in and developing it, trying to get the well to produce more water, washing it, working on it really heavily, they were able to produce more water out of this well than they had produced in the past. You remember that. So the yield of well 1 went up quite a bit when they went in and really aggressively cleaned up that middle screen, which was probably never cleaned up since the time it was constructed way back when. All right so far? So, hold on. The current aquifer depth for Gate County wells. Where are we? There, you've got wells at about 150 feet and an aquifer at 250 and an aquifer at 350. Three different aquifers that you've been tapping. Why don't we go deeper? It's salty down there. It's salty. So we're going to rely on these three different aquifer zones, 150, 250, and 350, imported aquifer zones. The U.S. Geological Survey has been involved in trying to decipher the complex aquifer systems in North Carolina for a long, long period of time. And they produce this really interesting series of cross-sections in the coastal plain of North Carolina. It's incredibly complex. I'm just going to show them to you and try to make a couple of important points about them. See these lines right here? These are lines of sections. So along that line, we're going to be able to lift up the earth and look at it in the subsurface. And this one's north-south. Right so far? Those two lines intersect right there. At what town?
Sunbury.
Sunbury. So where is Gatesville? It would be over here, relative to these cross-sections. So we don't have a U.S. Geological Survey cross-section that runs right through Gatesville. We'll have to use the ones for Sunbury and draw our inferences from it. So the first one I'm going to show you is one that goes in the direction of the dip of the beds. So look, the beds are dipping like that, and you're going to be looking in this direction. So it looks like the beds are going to be inclined off towards the ocean. The next one I'm going to show, which is the north-south one, you're going to be looking at the aquifer from this perspective, and they'll look horizontal. The beds will look horizontal. Okay. Complex, so I'm just going to make a couple of points about this, so bear with me. There's that north-south one, and things are going to look horizontal in that one. And in the east-west one, things are going to dip off towards the right. Here we go. See how the beds are dipping off to the right? Now, this is incredibly complex, but I'm going to try to make it simple for you. Can you see this aquifer right there? What's it called?
Upper Cape Fear.
Upper Cape Fear aquifer. Is it ringing a bell now? That one. Black Creek. Beaufort. Pungo River. What's that?
Yorktown.
Yorktown. See this little thing right there? That's all there is to the Castle Hayne. The Castle Hayne is pinched out this far west. You don't have Castle Hayne. You have Cretaceous and Yorktown. Cretaceous and Yorktown. So now where is Sunbury? Sunbury is right there. So if you go just over here near Sunbury, what kind of aquifers do we have? Well, we got that aquifer. We can drill there and hit a clay and then drill into that aquifer, and there's a good aquifer there. Uh-oh. Is that a red line? What's that? Salt water. So there's salt water down below and in the Black Creek aquifer, so you don't want to go there unless you want to build wells into the salty portions and take the salt out of it with reverse osmosis, which is being done all over the east coast of the United States. It's done all around the world. But it's not necessary here because you have this aquifer and this aquifer at this location, and there's at least 1, 2, 3 different aquifers that you can tap to get the water that you need. Let's look at the next cross section. The next one is roughly this area. Come on, there we go. East-west. Where can you see Sunbury? There it is. Sunbury. Notice this. Can you see all the little red lines? Salt water. Let's go east of it. So this is going north-south. There's the Albemarle Sound. So what do you have? 3 or 4 good aquifers, and then notice this, there's salt water over here, and there's salt water down there. So we got to be real cautious about drilling too deep or drilling too far east because of the salt water interface. Well, I know that's complex, but I'm just trying to emphasize to you that you do have 3 freshwater aquifers sitting on top of salty deep aquifers with salt to the east towards Sunbury. All right. If you guys want to learn something about fluoriding groundwater, I encourage you to find this article. You can find it on the internet. It's Fluoriding Groundwater by the U.S. Geological Survey. And I like the title, Too Much or Too Little of a Good Thing. Some people say we need to put fluoride in our water, and other people say we need to take fluoride out of our water. So it's a real serious controversy, if you well know. But here's the deal, and Rodney will talk about this in a minute. In that article, they pointed out that the maximum contaminant level for drinking water is 4 parts per million of milligrams per liter. They also point out that the optimum concentration for preventing tooth decay, especially in little kids, is 0.7 milligrams per liter. And that's the number you've been wrestling with here in the county, is 0.7. Do you want to meet that particular standard of 0.7 milligrams per liter, or meet the standard of 4 milligrams per liter and have to let everybody know that you're in exceedance of the 0.7? And so I know that Rodney will talk in more detail about this here in a couple of minutes. But I want to go back to this, and now I really want to talk to you about fluoride in your wells. When the consultant was working on well number 1A and developing it, Brad, raise your hand when you're ready, Brad agreed to measure the fluoride in each of the different zones. He very diligently measured the fluoride in the upper zone and the middle zone and the lower zone. And can you see the numbers from where you are for fluoride? Can anybody see them? I'm going to read them to you. In the upper zone, fluoride was 0.2. In the middle zone, it was 0.6. In the lower zone, it was 1.9. When we saw these numbers in my office in Greenville, we got really excited. You were really close to that 0.7 in the upper 2 aquifers, but exceeding it in the lower aquifer. So knowing that you want to increase your water supply, for a while there in Greenville, we got really excited that we could go out west of the town of Gatesville and put in some wells and find water in the upper 2 aquifers that were low in fluoride. It was really exciting to us, and we put together this figure, and we were really excited. But we had Brad working with us. So what Brad did is he went to these wells and has routinely measured fluoride through time. And what happened? When we pumped water from well 1, even though the upper zones had lower fluoride, and when we first started pumping them, the fluoride was low, the fluoride has systematically increased. And so I want to show you those numbers, I think. Hold on. Yeah, I hope you can see these numbers. I'm just going to tell you what they mean. Doggone it. I'm really sorry. I have no idea where we are now. I got to go back. Do it again. You know what's going on with this? Am I messing it up? All right, every time I press, it's doing this by itself. Can you help me? I don't know. Will you help me? Hey, will you just advance them for me? Do you mind? So go one more to that table. Will you stop right there? Rodney, let me have your.
They got you.
No, that's not it. What's going on?
We need a 14-year-old here
And
to
the
help.
board does have the hard copies.
Okay, look at your hard copies, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, look at well 1A, and go back to 6/9 of 25. We'll look at this. Thank you, guys. Well 1A. Notice this. After it was developed, the fluoride number 0.67, 0.74, 0.61, 0.68, and then all of a sudden in 7/16, the numbers jumped up to 1.92, and they remained at 2 consistently through time. And so all of the excitement and joy that we felt that we could go out west and find some shallow aquifers that would come close to meeting your 0.7 faded away pretty quickly because the fluoride numbers consistently increased up to the 1/2 to 2 range. Notice the fluorides in well number 2 through time. Averaging around, would you agree, around 2 or so? 1.6. The fluoride in well 3, a little bit higher, 2.73. So there's no doubt that the lower aquifer has higher fluoride than the other 2 aquifers. The other 2 aquifers up top are having to blend it out. Your system is averaging 2.57. That's the average listed there at the bottom of this particular chart. Is it working now, guys, or no? Well, we're going to recover. Okay? So if you flip over to this next chart, maybe they'll fix it, maybe not. This is just a graphical representation of the numbers that we showed in the previous chart. You probably can't see it up there. So it just shows through time the fluoride numbers. And notice that pretty sudden increase in fluorides after we put the 1A well back online. I conclude from this that the 3 aquifer sources that you have are not going to produce fluoride numbers that you're going to be happy with. And that going out and looking for shallow aquifers, the shallower 2 of the 3 available to you, is not going to be a solution for you in the long run, and you're going to just constantly battle the issue of meeting that 0.7 milligram per liter of part per million standard. So the initial glee when we saw those numbers faded away pretty quickly when we saw that when you pump the wells, it either brings high fluoride water in or it doesn't. And in this case it does. So I'm getting close to finishing here, so bear with me another minute. See this next figure? Oh, are you back up and running?
Yes.
You want to try to load it again? I bought my...
There you go.
Let's go here while he's working on it.
Okay.
You saw this slide before, okay? We want more water in the county. Which way do we go? Away from the saltwater interface, right? Mm-hmm. So that means from Gatesville towards the main highway and towards the 13 and towards the river, the north-south aspect of the river. That's all I wanted to show with that particular slide. If you go out into that area, this is the next table. If you go out into that area and look around at any wells that you can find, and we found wells that are 400 feet thick, deep, 200 feet deep, but most of them are about 400 feet deep, which is like that deep zone that you have in your wells, all 3 of your wells. And so it's absolutely clear to me that knowledgeable well drilling contractors in the area know that the 400-foot zone is the most prolific, and it will produce significant quantities of water. But what do we know about the fluoride in it? It's consistently above 1. Would you agree? Consistently above 1. And so that leads us to deal with the issues that confront you today as an organization. Do you continue to try to find ways of getting the fluoride numbers down by drilling new wells, hoping to get it down to 0.7 and constantly have to deal with being out of compliance? Or do you say, let's just go ahead and build some wells and meet our demands, our growing demands for water, by tapping really abundant water supply aquifers and treat the water for removal of fluoride? I think that's the major decision that you guys are going to talk about today. And so that's the decision I know Rodney's going to talk to you about in more detail. I want to talk to you about something that I can contribute to the conversation here, and that is this next figure that has to do with well interference. And I was really hoping I'd be able to see it. Is it going to show at all? 1 minute?
There you go.
Oh, I'm so happy. Look, this is really, really important with respect to the future of well development here for you guys. If you put in a well, I call it well A, down into an confined aquifer, the water level will rise up to that surface right there. Let's call it the tensiometric surface. We all agree with that. Above the top of the aquifer. If I put a pump in well A, forget about well B for a time. If I put a pump in well A and pump it, it will create a cone of depression that looks like the solid line. And so the water level will be right there in that well. And there will be a cone of depression. Now what happens if I come in and I put another well fairly close to it, and that's my well B, and well B taps the same aquifer, and I start pumping water from well B so many million gallons a day, it creates its own cone of depression shown by the dash line. Halfway between the 2 wells, the drawdown caused by well A is there, and the drawdown caused by well B is there, and so what happens? The interference caused by putting wells pretty close together causes the water level in each well to be lower than it would be if it was just one well pumping. So the water level in one well pumping is there, but the water level in this one is almost at the top of the aquifer. In North Carolina, thou shalt not lower the water level below the top of the aquifer in a production wells. It's against our rules. You cannot lower the water level in a confined aquifer well below the top of the aquifer. What's the moral of this story? Don't put the wells real close together. Don't put the wells real close together. See, if you move the wells way out to here, there'd be little well interference because the cone of depression is smaller the further away you get. We've been trying to figure out exactly how far away to put the wells, and with the information that Brad's been supplying us, I've come up with a number of about 4,000 feet for the spacing of our wells. To me, that would be a reasonable spacing. A lot of times we'll put our wells 5,000, 6,000 feet apart. I think an initial spacing for wells would be about 4,000 feet away from your existing wells. In which direction? West. West. Okay, next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
I love that part about the thou shalt not. My concern is, or does the DEQ regulate us in placement of our wells, especially with potential farmers having wells in the same vicinity? Wouldn't we not be impacted by them as well? Don't want to impact them, don't want to impact us?
Yes, a great question. When I talk about well spacing, I'm saying you must consider the presence
Everybody.
of existing wells.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, all right.
We cannot go out and put in a municipal water supply well and have an adverse impact on an ag well.
Right, okay,
We've got to think about where their wells are. We're getting a pretty good handle on it, Mr. Forsythe,
okay,
I think. But I
okay.
wholeheartedly agree that we cannot have adverse impact. I distinguish, however, between adverse impact and impact.
Right,
But I'm sure that the ag community has a lot more, they have a lot more liberty on their wells and what impact it may have on municipal.
They do, but at the same time, they're already there, and the infrastructure is there, and so we just have to be careful not to have an adverse impact. And I want to say,
I think a lot of your work is contributed to the fact that Division of Water Resources now is looking more carefully at the crossover of those impacts.
oh, without a doubt, especially further south in what we call the capacity use area, where we're really regulating withdrawals. But I want to emphasize this. Can you go back one slide without killing me?
Can I ask one more related to this? Because just trying to wrap my head around this. So that potentiometric level not being able to lower below that, obviously the top of the aquifer you're pulling from.
Yes, sir.
With the other wells there, farmers pulling theirs out only at certain times of the year, right? They have big
Right.
production times.
Right.
Is there a amount of time that you have for, I guess, recovery, and you get to play that into the picture of, hey, they're going to pump for 3 days a week during only these 3 months, and during that time, I guess the fluctuation went up down. You get to play games with those calculations and
Absolutely, but the way to deal with that most effectively is spacing. If you space the wells out 4,000 feet from everybody's well, then even during those periods when the wells are competing, you'll still be in pretty good shape.
All right.
But I agree with you that the seasonal use can be significant.
Right.
During a drought period, for example, you can have more drawdown, but if the wells are properly spaced, we should be in great shape.
Okay.
So again, I want to distinguish between impact and adverse impact. An adverse impact would be one in which the water supply well is no longer producing what the individual wants it to produce. Notice this, if you put a well right there and you have that much change in water level, what if you come way out here? It only lowers the water a little bit. Is it okay to lower the water level in another individual's wells by a small amount as long as that individual can still produce the same amount of water? And from my perspective, that's an impact, not an adverse impact. And so as we think about expanding your well field, I think about that. What is the proper spacing that might have some impact, but it won't be adverse? People will still be able to get the water they need to meet their demands.
You know, I was going to ask you, get back to Commissioner Forsythe's question. Two things is DEQ, and I don't know what it is in Virginia, it's probably similar. In North Carolina, public owned wells are issued a safe yield based on 12 hours pumping. So in the ag community, they're not regulated, but in the municipal county government, public water systems, you are to pump 12 hours and let that well rest 12 hours. That way, those hydraulic profiles, if he showed you, when they rest, they come back up. And that's kind of how they regulate.
yeah. Similar, I think every state's different, but I assume that North Carolina is slightly different from Virginia, but like in Virginia, if you don't have, I forget what it is, it's something like 25 houses on a system, you get a permit and it's pretty much unregulated. They just assume you're not going to have a big enough impact on anybody else. However, if you get to a bigger one that's much more regulatory driven, and almost in every case you're required to put 2 wells in, separate adequately enough to where you can have them on 12 hours off, potentially, if you were running them both.
That's the absolute key.
Yeah.
A well should be rested for the same amount of time that it's pumped.
Right.
If you say, I need it for 24 hours, it should rest for 24 hours. But 12 hours on, 12 hours off minimizes the cone of depression. If you pump that well A for 24 hours, it created that much cone of depression. At the end of 24 hours of non-pumping, the potentiometric surface would have recovered. So we need to do that. We need to keep the spacing right. We also need enough wells that we can pump them for the same time period that we pump, let them rest. Okay. I think I just had one more slide. I want to make one more point. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of discussion and concern, and I share that concern about when you develop new wells, whether or not you implement test wells. So I want to try to give you an example here with my Castlehane. I'll use my Castlehane. Suppose these 3 wells represent, this rock represents your 3 wells here in the county. Okay? Now I want to go out west of town and I want to put in 2 wells. I want to put one here 4,000 feet and another one here 4,000 feet. Am I willing to accept the risk that if I drill that well and make a production out of it, that will be a high yielding well? The purpose of test wells is to drill a well, like the one to the right of the big pumping well, and perform testing on it to prove the chemistry and the yield of that well. And then move over 15 feet in and put in a production well. You've just now increased the cost pretty substantially by having to put in a test well before the production well. So from my perspective, and we've done this routinely at GMA, I would move out to the most distant well away from my existing well field. Not this one, but this one. And I'd put in a test well. And I would then put in a production well if it proves good. I'd then come back in here and I'd drill a borehole. I'd look at everything in that borehole. And if it looked like what we see here and looks like what we see here, I wouldn't put in a test well there. So mine is my perspective is kind of a compromise with respect to the business of test wells. I don't think in a system where we think we know a lot about the groundwater system that a test well is necessary at every production well location. So that would be my perspective. We move out 2 locations if you decide to go in that direction and do a test and production well, come into the next one closest to your existing wells, see how it looks when you drill that borehole and go to production well if it looks good. Anyway. All right, that's my perspective on groundwater hydrology and the current status of things here in the county. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is great, thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That's yours.
Madam Chair, do y'all need a comfort break before I talk? I don't think I'm going to preach quite as
If we could do a 5-minute recess, I guess I have to have a motion for that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Wait a second. All in favor? All right, so we are in recess till 4:10. Okay. All right, so if we can get a motion to come out of recess.
So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor? Show of hands, unanimous. Okay, so we are now back in session. We'll hand it over, Mr. Tarr, I
Yes,
believe,
ma'am.
correct?
One order of business before I start. Someone in the audience asked a question about why is Gates County have these deposits? And I just like for Dr. Sproul to kind of clear that up, that Gates County is not unique.
Right.
And there's some explanation for that
Okay.
and how it come here. Go ahead, Dr.
So I just a brief explanation. The Cretaceous aquifers are, as I pointed out earlier, amazingly complex. They were fed by different rock bodies in the Piedmont. As those rocks weathered away and that material ended up out here in the coastal plain, we see differences in the minerals that make up the different aquifers. We see this fluoride problem all the way down to the eastern part of Pitt County, where I live. Fluoride is a real serious problem there. Fluoride concentrations above 5 parts per million. And so all the way up into Virginia, Mr. Forsythe, you can verify this, and in southeastern Virginia, the Cretaceous aquifer up there called the Potomac is known to have high fluoride levels. So it has a lot to do with the original materials that make up the aquifer, but it also has a lot to do with the types of materials that overlie the aquifer. Up here, you don't have the Castlemaine. That allows a different rate of infiltration of water, and that water is interacting with naturally occurring materials. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is a problem unique to Gates County. You've got a serious problem here that has to be dealt with, but so do other people both north and south of you. Further south in North Carolina, we have other problems, like acidic water in the Cretaceous aquifers and black water in the Cretaceous aquifers. So we're always dealing with water quality issues, and clearly the issue that we're facing here in this county is, do we just keep going along and trying to meet that 0.7, or do we go ahead and really deal with the issue in an effective manner? I don't know if that addresses the concern that somebody had, but I appreciate the question.
Well, the only thing I was going to say, can you explain a little bit about how did these deposits come about in this particular area? Is just the overall geology of the earth from South Carolina up into Virginia unique, or were they storm events over Mother Time that had large runoffs, erosion, etc.? I think that would help clear that up too.
Help me out with this. Rodney, we have all this. I'll refresh your memory. Look at the level of complexity. Each one of these different colors represents a different rock type and usually a different age. The rocks in this area are 300 to 500 million years old, and they're really different. See this big pink thing right here? That's all granite. These rocks up here, these are volcanic rocks, really old volcanic rocks. And so if volcanic rocks erode and that material comes out here and makes up the coastal plain, it'll have a different composition than, say, this granite that's mostly eroding, producing feldspar and quartz that might not have much fluoride in it. So the difference in fluoride up here, from my perspective, comes from differences in what I call the source rock, the rock that was weathered over long periods of time, millions of years, and moved out here either directly into the ocean during Cretaceous time by streams, or out directly into the ocean in an estuarine system, or actually out into the ocean where it was deposited one layer on top of the other with different compositions than maybe you would find down here in this southern section of the coastal plain of North Carolina. That's what I think is going on with respect to this whole issue up here of high fluoride in most of the rocks north of Pitt County, or sands north of Pitt County. Okay?
All right. Thank you. Okay, load me up.
But I'm sitting down.
You sir. Okay, Madam Chair and members of the board, we started out with this outline of what we wanted to talk about today, and as you can tell, Dr. Sproul is giving you a vast amount of information about the geology, makeup, and what's unique that's creating this health issue in Gates County. Moving along from that, let's look at this slide here. It's number 3 on your chart. All right, we did ag wells. We had 5 ag wells. 4 of them was in this area here, and I think most of this township here is I may get this backwards. Is this the Halls Township here? Yes. Okay, and then we got 1 up in the Reynolds Township, up in this area. So we had 2 from the Askew. If you'll go to the next, let me see if I can bring that back to the next slide. Okay, all right, so in this slide right here, we had 2 on the Askew farm. One of those, we didn't know what the depth of it was. One of on the Askew farm, on Highway 158 was down in the lower area, and the other one was up on Highway 14 north. It had 2.2 parts per billion in it, a million, excuse me. And then we had 2 in the Camper farm area, and they had one had 2.6, I believe, and one had 1.9. Then we went down to the Lewis farm, which is the southernmost well, and it was 1.7. And then we looked at, Dr. Sproul talked about well 1A, that's your well 1A. We had a variance in that well from like a 0.6 up to a 2.0, and in well 2, which is about 1,500 feet or a little less away from well 1A, we had a variance from 1.1 up to 3.2. And then about 3,000 feet away, well 3 from the water plant, which is 1A, we had a variance of about 2.8 to 3.2. And if you recall, in looking at the chart, and what slide's that on right there?
4.
Commissioner, slide 4. Okay, we saw some interesting trends, but overall, when you look at all of that, we had a excuse me, let me go back to that one. Okay, we had a low of about, I can't read that from here, I'm not looking at the chart, but
It's like a
0.61.
this column here is system. This is all 3 wells, 1, 2, and 3, blended at the water plant, and that's what's going into the system right now. Yeah. And the overall average of that is about 2.57, and that was from a period, I'm gonna have to read the chart here, Scott.
That's June 9th.
Okay, from June to now, and then this, excuse me, I get mixed up like you, Richard. Yeah, I got to go back up. Okay, all right, and then this time period here, read that out, Scott. I can't read it from here.
8/13.
Yeah.
Okay, from August, the begin time was from June, was that June?
June 9th.
That's August 13 there.
To August 13?
Yep.
The average at about through August 13 was 2.41. So that, all I'm emphasizing here is what Dr. Sproul was saying, based on the results that Brad was able to collect from the well field, that we get variances and we get spikes. And one of the things when we first met with Dr. Sproul in his office was, we were kind of getting excited that maybe perhaps we could drill 10 shallow wells and get up out of the fluoride. But then when we started seeing this movement in concentrations, that gave us some concern. And I asked Dr. Sproul one day, I called him and I said, to what level of certainty do you feel like if we go shallow wells that we will never experience a migration of values coming up, because we're seeing it. We've seen it in this chart here. See all that zigzagging movement. Now it's been leveling off to somewhere around 2.5 in this area in here. And because of that, I contacted Horn ROs. They're probably the most recognized RO firm in the country. It's probably put in more plants than anybody else. And I asked them to do a mixing and blending, which I'll get to in a minute, because I think somebody had some question about mixing and blending, and that has a relevancy here. But overall, let's go to the next slide. All this, when we leave here today, I would like to make sure that the Gates County Board of Commissioners are in complete agreement, and if you would take an action on it or adopt it, but knowing the public health issues with the neuro and the cognitive impairment issues that come out of high fluoride experiences, and it creates enough concern to how, the question to me is, how protective of public health does this board want to be? Do you want to try to get it down as low as you can within economic reason? Or do you want to get it halfway down? Where do you want to be? EPA's recognized level is 0.7, and that's what the Washington Regional Office is saying, and even on the EPA, even though they got a 4 milligram max, Congress has never passed a law to promulgate that at a lower, but based on studies, that's what public health in North Carolina is recommending. Do you know what that is in your state right now?
Yeah, I take exception a little bit with this though. The standards they set for 0.7 is if you need to add it. If you have a system with 0 fluoride in it, they're recommending don't put any more than 0.7 in.
That's correct.
Actually, EPA now, from what I understand, they're considering adopting this, saying if it's got fluoride in there, you need to reduce it to below 1.
Yeah.
So in reality, going 0.7, we'd be below what EPA is even shooting for. So
Yeah.
for us, my expectation would be is 1 milligram per liter versus 0.7 would be reaching to what EPA is proposing for reduction of fluoride. That's 0.7, I'm pretty sure is for adding fluoride.
It is,
What the dentist
according to the North Carolina code right now, if you're going to add fluoride into a public water drinking system, they're recommended 0.7.
Yeah.
And if you get below that, if you can target below that, you would even be more protective of public health. So that is a policy that this board has to agree upon. Once you agree on a threshold of what level of fluoride contamination you want in your drinking water, then that'll be what drives the treatment and going after water. I think Dr. Sproul has adequately explained to you that it's far more promising to go after the bigger wells where we can get larger volumes and not have to develop, because the well now with test well added to it, you're now looking at a range of about $1 million a well. So,
Well, Rodney, as we add to that conversation, don't we have communication from the regional office?
Yes, we have that.
Indicating that if we were putting in a brand-new system, with or without fluoride, they wanted us to hit a target of 0.
It's the same thing. If you're going in the water business and you're going to add fluoride, they're going to set that 0.7. That's the threshold. And now that Bobby Kennedy is in EPA, and he really is against fluoride. So we don't know where it's going to. We don't know. So do you want to err on the side of conservative, or do you want to be real liberal with it? I can't answer that question. That's what you got to live with, because you got to answer to your constituents.
So the question I have about that, like Mr. Forsyth was saying.
Yeah, thanks.
The question I have about that, like Mr. Forsyth was saying, if we get it to 1 by reverse osmosis, and they come in and say you got to be 0.5,
Yeah.
what would it take to go from 1 to 0.5 with the system that we would put in place?
So I've talked about that a bunch. So Harn, the very guys you talk about, the way they make these systems, they make it with, these cells. Mr. Arnold came in and showed us.
The train.
Right, the train.
Yeah.
And so a train might have, I think they can do them as small as 4 cells. And if that's not adequate, though, you can add in another 4-cell system and another 8. So the deal is if you were to build a facility, you just need to make sure you add yourself a little bit of space for the potential to add in. And you can get them skid mounted. I think that's actually what Brad saw as well. And you can just slide in another skid and hook it up. It's not like going out and buying a new microwave and putting it in your cabinet, but I mean, as long as you leave space, you can plug it in and put it another one in, and they're in parallel to add capacity and lower their overall rate. So you can do that. I mean, it's not like you have to build a whole new building and all new piping.
As long as you got space, the pumping systems, the power is required for it and all that kind of stuff.
And these guys, I know Green and other consultants, those guys are really good at trying to plan ahead for, hey, we're going to build your facility and allow you for future capacity expansion. So that is possible. But the question I think they're pointing at, though, is we have to set a target to say they're going to shoot for if they were to do an initial design, what they're designing to accomplish.
For example, EPA's maximum is 4, but their secondary limit is 2 milligrams per liter. And at 2 milligrams per liter, you're still in a risk range. And so the state of North Carolina is now recommending 0.7. And even if we put advanced treatment in to hit that 0.7 target, on a conservative basis, we would probably be trying to strive for about a 0.5 so that we never get over a 0.7.
Right.
I've got a slide that's going to try to address some of your thoughts on that in just a second.
Okay.
So that's important. I think back in reviewing some of your minutes in history, back in August, y'all talked about this very subject, and there apparently was some consensus that you wanted to be at 0.7 or as low as possible. So I'll leave that with you, but I would urge you, if y'all could take a position on that today, it would be really good, because once we know what your acceptable level is for your citizens, then we can then start to do our planning and our processing and the reports and things that have to come with that to get into funding. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Okay, all right. To make these determinations on design and how the membrane would work if you went into advanced treatment, we have to do what's called pilot testing. And in pilot testing, and I'm gonna move away from the slide, but this is the calendar in which we would do pilot testing right here. There is a unit right now in Chowan County. They're finishing up there. It's going to be moved to North Halifax County, and then Gates County has been promised to be next in line. We believe that's going to be in late December, so we're thinking maybe early January we would start the target on that. All right, let me go to the next slide. Okay, this slide right here gives you a little bit of insight of how RO works. That diagonal right there is a barrier which represents the membrane filter. Water comes in one side, and what gets through that goes on as treated water. And it also goes through a second stage, and then the water that's rejected off of that is concentrated. That's like backwash water. That has to go to a river or some large receiving stream that can handle the assimilation and dilution of it. Okay, let's go one more slide down. Okay, on this slide right here, let me I should have brought my copy, if you don't mind me. All right, this slide right here kind of gets to the question on dilution. I think some of y'all had some questions about dilution. Okay, when we get into design, if the board approves to go forward at some point in time to get into design for advanced treatment, we know that the highest concentration in the county's wells is about 3.2. And we know right now in the last year that your maximum peak day is about 1.4 million gallons a day. So if we plow 3.2 into it, we would be looking at a permeate. That's your filtered water. That's your fourth column over. And the unpermeated would be 1,130,769 gallons of water that would be filtered if we were pumping into it 1.6 million. And to concentrate, the waste that would be going to disposal would be 282,000. And the blend, raw water blend, we could take 269,000, that's the top number on a raw water blend, for scenario number 1, that's your six column over, is 269,000 gallons a day. We could take that much raw water coming out of the ground and we could blend it with the filtered water to get that 1.4 million in peak. That's what the system was crying for last year on the peak day, okay? And incidentally, getting back to your question a while ago about resting the wells and pumping the wells, based on North Carolina's approval of your current system, you've got 1,430,000 gallons a day is your 12-hour safe yield. Okay, to go membrane, if we had a 3.2 concentration to go membrane, we got to have more groundwater because it takes 1.6, almost 1.7 million gallons of raw water into the reverse osmosis treatment unit to net out 1.4, and that's using, and to do that, we're using 269,000 gallons of raw water. We're blending the two. We're taking the treated water based on a 3.2 concentration, and that's blending it and diluting it down to a concentration on your far there of 0.69. Now, to get back to Commissioner Forsyth's question there, if we want to take, in scenario 1, if we want to take that to 0.5, we're going to use less raw water. We're not going to blend as much raw to get that concentration lower. If we set a goal of 0.5, then that is the scenario. But to further address this, I've created 4 scenarios here. Assuming the worst condition of 3.2 is scenario 1, and then the second one, let's say it averages out at about 2.5. And right now, the system, based on those curves that you saw, we're looking somewhere in the 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 area. Now, it could creep back up, but Brad has not seen anything in excess of 3.2. Okay, so we feel pretty safe with that. And then we got a scenario 2, a 3 is a 2-part, and then a scenario 4 of 1.5 parts per million of fluoride. And I don't think we have seen that ever as a blended concentration coming out of the water plant. But what that does, that's just a simple table to give you an understanding of how much raw water we can blend to net out what the peak day is going to be. And as we grow the system, we would need more than that. So right now we're looking at the potential of developing 2 more wells. We know we got to do 1 more. And if you reflect back to what Dr. Sproul was saying, we want to go out 8,000 to 10,000 feet from well number 3. And well number 3 is your giant well. You're getting over 1,000 gallons a minute. And remember what he talked about colonic depression. And remember what he talked about 12 hours of rest time. If you're going to pump it 12 hours, you're going to need to let it rest 12 hours. So you don't have to have all that water at one time, but you need to program it and stretch it in a way that you have redundancy. If you lost your big well on peak day, you'd start getting in real trouble real fast. So I'm explaining that to you in this manner so that you can get the gravity of the situation. Okay, I think there was one other point I wanted to make on this. Notice down in the red text down here, Commissioner Forsyth, would you just read that out to everybody? You got a mic right there. read that red text on the, right there at the bottom.
Let's see, Green Engineering would caution that if the regulatory goal and county goal is 0.7 milligrams per liter of fluoride in finished water, then targeting a lower value would be recommended to account for variation in feed concentrations and actual membrane performance. To ensure filtered water is below 0.7 milligrams per liter, target should be set for 0.5 milligrams or lower.
Okay. All right, so how do we do that? So as Dr. Sproul and Brad has demonstrated to you, we see great variations up and down. So on a given day, we can't say it's going to be this amount. It could be a different amount. It's just like when you go down the road and put your foot on the pedal, you don't always stay on the speed limit. You may fall back, you may get over. When you're putting sugar in your coffee, you may go over, you may not have enough. The same with this. We don't have a guaranteed certainty of what the concentrations are going to be consistently. If we did, then we could establish a rate and we could run that every day and it would be perfect. So how are we going to achieve that? If y'all go forward with advanced treatment, what we would do, we put a computer with programmable logic on it and a metering system. So as the concentration of fluoride increases, the amount of feed of raw water blend would decrease. As the concentration of fluoride in the raw water decreases, then we will allow more raw water blend. So we wouldn't have to waste as much water. Remember, on reverse osmosis, if this is a selected technology, the best we can recover based on what the industry is saying right now is about 80%. In other words, if we put 1 million gallons into that unit, we can expect to only recover 800,000. 200,000 of that is going to waste. Okay? So we have to understand that.
But the reality for that really is when you do your pilot testing, we might find that we're taking 95% out because we have no other,
Yeah.
we don't have salts or calcium or
That's
other
why-
things. So we could likely have a
Yeah.
way higher.
Yeah.
So that's why the pilot testing will be so critical.
That's right.
Okay.
We don't speculate that it'll be that good, and that's not Green Engineering's opinion. This is industry from different vendors that I've talked to based on this. But that is the point. So when we run the pilot test, one of the things we're going to need to do is Brad is going to have to get a new battery of analysis, a full-scale inorganic analysis of all 3 wells, and then one of the blend, and then we're going to take that, and we're going to take the results of the RO membrane, and through that, they will come up with a design of what level of the RO membrane that they need. In other words, how tight it is, how tight's it got to be, and how much pressure have we got to push that water through that membrane to take out these fluoride molecules. Just like they're doing in space. You know what those folks are drinking up there in space, don't you? Could you just think maybe what they're drinking in space? There's no wells in space. There's not a well on there, and they can't haul that much water. So just use your imagination. This same technology is what's keeping them people alive in space. Okay. All right. These are excellent questions you brought, Mr. Forsythe. Okay, right here is a collage. You turn to the next page. Brad and I went to Chowan County to look at this unit. If you see that man standing there with the bald head, I think that's the back of me. And I'm 6'1", and that's about 6'5", 6'6", that device. It looks like, and it's about 42 inches wide, and it's about 4 feet deep. That unit right there we'll probably be running water through it at about 2 gallons per minute. And we'll be taking data from that and running it through the lab. And based on that, we will be able to populate the table that we showed you on page 10 of this PowerPoint. We'll be able to populate that we'll know the strength and the sizing of the membrane cartridges that goes into it, and then that will be able to determine what the pressure is going to have to be. It's possible with our water, with it not being contaminated with a lot of iron, low in chlorides. There's some of the wells that have dissolved solids that's higher than others, and we learned that from taking samples on some of them ag wells. We had higher levels of dissolved solids, and some had some elevated chlorides in it. But we take the blend of that, and then I will make a determination on pressure. It is possible that we may not have to go completely to RO, which is the highest advanced level, and it takes up as much as 300 PSI pressure to push it through that membrane. Based on the chemical constituents in that water, we will determine then if we can go nano. Nano is the next level down. It uses less energy to push it through. We're looking somewhere around 100 to 150 PSI to push that water through it. Okay, another important factor, let me change over here, is a schedule. I put a schedule in here of what would need to be done. Okay, the board, number one, you're gonna decide either today or at your next meeting, you're gonna decide what level of public health you want to provide your constituents out there. Number two, you need to determine on the planning horizon. We're looking at 20 years minimum when we do an engineering report, but we think from Dr. Spruill's work, he needs to look at least 40 years out as far as where we're going to put these wells. Can you take me back to, let me see if I can get back to this a minute. Let me go back. Go back to the county. I think that's page 3 on your PowerPoint. It's the county map. Which page is it with the county map?
It's page
Page 3.
3.
Is it 3?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me see if I can make this thing get there. All right, here we go. All right. Okay. Now, the water plant is in this area. These 3 blue dots are your 3 existing wells. And we got a proposed, well, we got an ag well here, and we got some ag wells down in here. Based on what Dr. Spruill's preliminary thoughts are, we want to kind of go west or slightly northwest away from this current well field, and we want to go at least 8,000 to 12,000 feet out and put in a well. There is an existing ag well at about 12,000 feet out. But what's important with Dr. Spruill is to come up with a predicted well field area where you will drill your future wells. Okay, why is that important? The closer we can keep these wells in a network within 4,000 to 5,000 feet apart, the lesser amount of transmission pipe. Remember, we got to collect this water out of the ground, we got to pump it to the surface, we got to send it to the treatment plant, we got to run it through this advanced treatment, and then we put it into the system. So if we come down here, excuse me, if we come down in this southern area and we end up putting the plant up here, then we got a lot of raw water transmission to add.
Right.
If we put the plant down here, we still got to build a water transmission line for the finished water to get it back into your core. You got a 12-inch water line that's coming to Gatesville now, and it'll be going out toward the commercial park. So these are the things that will be costed out when we get into that area. But for right now, the closer we can find the water in this particular area, if that pans out with Dr. Spruill's work, that will save us money as far as raw water transmission. And so we're asking him to look at 40 years, potentially 3 million gallons a day. The initial project here, we would be looking at a design of about 2 million gallons a day, but we may not load we may not load the membrane trains up for 2 million. We'll just have to look at that as we get deeper into it once an engineering study is done. Is there any questions about what I've said so far? Any points that you need to make?
Just to verify, you were saying that the US 13 well is about 12,000 feet from the well 3, is that right? Just looking at, I'm trying to think of the
I'd say
area.
it's about,
Is that what you just said?
that well would probably be about 9,000.
9,000, okay.
8 to 9,000 feet away.
And just to clarify that, and it needs to be, whatever goes in would need to be 4,000 feet from that as well.
Yeah,
So,
Dr.
okay.
Sproul has decided that we need to be a minimum of 4,000.
Okay.
Right now, you've got 3 wells within 3,000 feet.
Right.
Dr. Sproul just finished a study for us in Pasquotank. We just increased that plant capacity
Okay.
to 3 million gallons a day, and he's suggesting out there in that study that we're going to be at least a minimum of a mile apart on our wells. How are we doing on time, Madam? I see you looking it up.
Oh, no, we're
Over
good.
there.
I have kids going everywhere. My
Okay.
watch just notifies me when they
Okay.
leave home.
All right, I understand that. Okay, all right, so let's go on back down through where we are about the timelines, and let's look at that's our pilot study. So there's a lot of work that will come out of that pilot study. Okay, all right. I did not talk that much about this, so I'll be real brief with it. Again, this is a typical RO unit. This is your water coming in from the well. It's going through filtration, then it's going to finished water. And this blue line right here, that is your bypass line. That's raw water that you would bring into your permeate, which is filtered water, and you would blend. The final product going to distribution would be a combination of raw water out of the wells and treated water coming through the membranes, and the two of those together would give you your final product, and you would dilute it down to get it to that 0.7 or that 0.5 parts per million. That's what that means to you. Okay, all right, we've been through this slide. All right, we've been through this slide. This is just a pictorial showing you, excuse me. This is a membrane cartridge right here, okay? And it stands about 5 foot long. If you'll look on the cover of your PowerPoint, if you'll turn your front cover of your PowerPoint, you see that rack, that is a train, that's actually a train in Pasquotank County. That's a 1 million gallon a day train. That's what it looks like. And there's about 15, 16 of those membrane cartridges in it. Okay, all right, let's go back to phase 2 project implementation. What does that mean? Okay, if the board decides on a public health policy, and if the board decides that they want to go forward with developing a project, then one of the key things is to go about finding the money. Okay, we would propose that we would apply for state revolving fund loan money. Now, you are a distressed county right now, so there is a possibility that you can borrow money 1% or less. You may, you're not disadvantaged. You make too much income to be disadvantaged, but you are distressed. So we would apply for loaning grant here. We would also encourage you to work closely with your congressman to go after a STAG grant, that's state and tribal grants, state and tribal assistant grant. A lot of water systems, we have been successful in getting those, but it's a lot of, getting a STAG grant has a lot to do with your relationship to your congressman and how strong and how hard he'll work. So you got to kind of keep the heat to that person. Okay, also, boy, I can't mess this up. Okay, the other thing is special state appropriations. Now, Mr. Sternberg over here, he's your buddy on that. You're paying him the mega bucks to go find you some money. So I'm sure he's already laid a golden egg just sitting on that church pew over there. So we got to go after that and any other appropriations that you can think of. So we got to be aggressive about going after the money. The next thing is to look at doing the NPDS permit, doing an engineering alternative analysis. And let me caution you, because you're going to have close to 200,000 to 300,000 gallons a day of concentrate, that's your backwash. It's going to have 5 times the concentration. If you got 3 parts in your raw water coming in, when you take it out of there, you're going to concentrate it 5 times. So we'll be sending to a body of water 5 times the concentration. So in doing that, you have to do core mix models, 7Q10 models on the flow to determine what the dilution factor would be. The state, we had a conference call, Brad and Scott and I and Leo, we had a conference call with the state NPDS permitting section at the end of July, and they said that there was not a receiving stream in Gates County capable of taking that much water. So they said we would definitely have to go to the Chowan. So right now, our pick on the Chowan, on the Chowan River, is due west of the existing water plant. We think that the water plant may end up very well being somewhere in this area, the new water plant. And this is 8.5 miles. One other thought that Dr. Sproul was looking at, because he does 7Q10 models and core mix models, is to go through and be south of Gatesville at the boat ramp. The only problem with that, it would have to be costed out. It's about 5 more miles in distance, and we cannot bring a wastewater line through Gatesville. It's just not enough room in there. So we'd have to go around Gatesville. But these are things you work out in engineering. But I just wanted to show you that this is the Chowan River, and that's about 8.5 miles from here as the crow flies. Of course, you got to wiggle around and go through some roads. But that's ultimately where the concentrate would be discharged, and we have to get a permit. Going back to that again, to go through the NPDS permit, to get a permit to be able to discharge wastewater into one of North Carolina's public bodies of water, you have to do what's called an engineering alternative analysis. And that'll make you look at buying water from Chowan, buying water from Suffolk, buying water from somebody. You got to look at all these different things, and you got to justify why that's the lesser alternative. So it's not a done deal at this point. But that alternative analysis is how the state of North Carolina justifies that it is reasonable and pertinent and effective to go to the Chowan River. And then there's limits to that and how it has to be blended.
What size discharge pipe would that be?
I think we would, to keep the head loss down, to keep the energy, we'd be looking probably at no less than a 12-inch line to keep the head down. We could do an 8 or we could do a 10, but we'd have to look at the head loss on that. Pasquotank County pumps 18 miles from their treatment plants all the way over on one side of the county, close to Gates County, and they pump it all the way to the Albemarle Sound. Just to give an example of that. Okay.
So you're not saying that we're going to need to treat the water, the modeling you're talking
No,
about.
that's
When they do the modeling, it's
That's
to see
right.
if you need some level of treatment. But fluoride's not a regulated, the contaminant
No.
now is in North Carolina. It's not Virginia, so we do the same modeling, and they pretty much say, yeah, you can discharge it to any stream available.
Yeah.
So
Well, you can only discharge it into a stream that
a
you can.
non-zero flow stream.
Yeah, and because the Chowan is tidal affected all the way up to that point, it's tidal affected through Gatesville here.
Right. But we're also talking about the volume of water, it's talking about size of the pipe. I feel like we're getting way ahead of ourselves because We haven't done the pilot testing, so we don't know how much water we're in discharge.
Exactly.
So
I
he
just-
has to
Yeah,
set-
he's just explaining the process
Yeah,
at
I'm just-
Beyond,
We're
yeah.
just going through the highlight, yeah, because all these things have to be done based upon what your decision is going to be on public health goals, and if you want to go forward with advanced treatment, and you want to go for high volume wells. Those are the decisions that you're going to need to address as we go forward. Okay, what are some potential alternative technology? Sodium aluminum filtration, you've already done that, you took it out, it didn't work. Another one is ion exchange. Another one is carbon filtration. And the most advanced is reverse osmosis. All those have to be looked at, and maybe 2 of those 4 would be potentially piloted for this project if the board goes forward. Okay, let's kind of sum up some hydraulics here. Currently, your peak day is at 1.4 million. Your current 12-hour safe yield on your wells is 1,430,000. The design for the future, you should look at least 2 million gallons a day, which requires 2.5 million of raw water supply to meet the reverse osmosis process. Gates County's utility right now we need to plan, as I indicated, for a 40-year supply, which we believe would be upwards of close to 3 million gallons. That hasn't been fully studied. Right now, with the current yield, you got 1.3. You're doing work currently, and we have a permit now to change the pump out for well 1A, which will give you an additional 144,000, which will bring your safe yield to 1,574,000 once the state approves that. Question was asked, the number of wells to achieve the goal is uncertain at this time, but assuming if we need 1 million gallons, if we could get 2 wells like well 2, that's 600 gallons a minute, which would give you enough to take you over that. So until we do the test wells and to draw some more data, that is uncertain at this point. Provided the advanced treatment plan is authorized by the board, then at least 2 additional wells should be online as redundancy and additional capacity. And groundwater management will assist green engineering in looking at those high quality goals. All right, I'm going to stop right there, and if you got questions, you've been generous with your time. I know you're tired. You've listened a whole lot today.
No, I appreciate it, and we are able to take action in this because this was the purpose of the meeting. If we want to move forward, I will just, and she doesn't have to if she doesn't want to. I don't know if Ms. Stoop has anything that she would like to add in relation to the
That's
public
Amy
health.
Underhill.
Or Amy Underhill, I mean, yes, I meant Underhill. I didn't know if she had anything. No, okay.
Who's Miss Amy Underhill?
Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
Deputy Director of Regional Health.
Yes, regional health,
Okay.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, so he was saying if we wanted to call to action, so we are able to do that. That was clarified earlier, if we wanted to move forward with setting anything
And is it
today.
safe to say we've got some, I'm looking at our 2 consultants, we've got some breathing room until we receive the results of the pilot test. And once you know what the makeup of our raw water is, then can the board suggest to you, what would it be to hit the target of 1.0? What would it be to hit 0.7? What would it be to hit 0.5? And based on that pilot test data, could you then give them a kind of a range of issues as to what cost, what type of technology? And I mean, do they have to set that target before we do the pilot test?
The biggest goal that I'd like to walk out of here today, going back to Wilson
level.
County, is what's your public health goal?
What's the level, I guess?
Yeah, and see,
Once you
that's
know
my
what
problem
you
is,
know-
I'm not confident, to be honest with you, I'm not confident in that 0.7 number that you've quoted here, that's really a number we should be shooting for, to be honest with you. I feel like we need to know better. I'm just not, the maximum amount you can add to it is not necessarily what we need to clean to. And additionally, I mean, with the ability to potentially add trains to it, I'd hate to set an arbitrarily low goal. The other thing too is without having a comprehensive plan, we're talking about 1.2 or 4 million gallons a day. If we have a 30% loss rate, we should also be melding into this a leak repair and maintenance of our system to get that flow down, which would also affect how much water we had to treat. We're kind of jumping all over the place here with
Well,
looking at
to
our
help
system.
answer your question, water loss is always important, Commissioners, because I just asked you that. What was your water loss on your water system? That's paramount. And now that y'all have taken the action to put in new meters, you're making more revenue, and he's able to make a better determination of what his water loss is. And basically, every water system should be doing a water audit every month. You should know what you're pumping to the system, you should know what you're selling, and then you should know what you're losing. Because what you're losing is revenue that you could be putting and extra cost it takes to produce that you are losing. So water loss is important, and it needs to be into that. But
Brad.
to me, before we can go,
Brad, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. What is our water loss now?
We're sitting at about between 18 and 20%.
Well, so we've improved a lot,
Okay,
man.
yeah, that's a lot better. Okay.
Okay. So is that
Yeah.
number we're talking about, the 1.4 million, is that with the 18% loss now versus, I guess we
Okay.
were at 33% before?
So when we reduce that loss even more, then that 1.4 is going to reduce as
But in
well.
reality, unless he's a miracle worker,
Well-
he's never going to get lower than like 10%.
Yeah.
No, but
You're gonna have
there's still an
flushing,
8 to
you're gonna
10%
have
fire. Yeah, there's
fluctuation there.
a 40-year-old system,
Right.
a 40-year-old system can meet 10%. They're doing pretty doggone
Okay,
good.
so we're good with 18, I mean, better with 18 to 20 than we
Yeah.
were, okay.
It's substantially better than
Yeah,
what it was
'cause it
2
was
years
like-
ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what the start was when you came? It,
30-something.
30-something, I was thinking, okay.
That's what I
So it's
remember,
like half
33.
what it was. Okay,
So, here's my 2 cents. There's a couple different options of treatment. So I'm that what if guy. What if we can't dump it into
Chowan.
the Chowan? Just saying, what if we can't? And with this carbon filtration system, could we get it to the 0.7 with a carbon filtration system?
We won't know until we do a pilot.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying.
And
I don't want
still
this.
there's gonna be backwash on the carbon, so you gotta look at that potential
Yeah.
too. You can't put backwash in a road ditch anymore.
Right.
You know, you gotta meet these environmental goals that the state sets. I mean, it makes sense. It makes good sense.
So I don't want to set a level low enough that we possibly couldn't achieve at some point because we can't dump it into Chowan or we have nowhere to dump it. So,
Well, the first thing the state's gonna do when you go through the NPDES process, they're gonna want you to look at where you can put it in a wastewater treatment plant. There is no wastewater treatment plant that's gonna take pure raw,
Yeah.
pristine. This is pristine water except it's got high fluoride because that negates the biological mass you got to have to treat the water in a wastewater treatment plant. And it's not cost effective for Gates County to build a wastewater treatment plant to handle this. The solution here is being able to dilute it in a body of water that it won't create any negative environmental impact. Commissioner Forsyth is right. There is no regulation limit on what you can treat. You've just got to be able to demonstrate the mix. Dr. Spruill, you want to elaborate on the core mix and why we're required to do that in tidal affected waters?
I'll be glad to. Can I speak about that?
No.
Well, we want to pick it up on nationwide.
Cornell University mixing model is a computer model that must be run in order to get a permit to discharge this volume of water into something like the Chowan River. I'll briefly tell you how it works. Imagine that right now, your chair's at the bottom of the Chowan River and the water's up to the ceiling. You're in the Chowan. The Cormix model says this: let's put a pipe out into the river on the bottom. So it's going to be a pipeline that's going to be 10 feet long, so have holes in it through which the water will discharge. Cormix modeling requires that you understand the fauna and flora living on the bottom. You understand the water chemistry of the water in the Chowan. And it says this: based on the pilot study, plug in the concentration, for example, of fluoride, into the model, based on everything you've learned. And the model will tell you how far away from the pipe before you'll get a dilution of that fluoride to an acceptable level. In order to do it, you have to put an instrument on the estuarine floor for a week to a month, depending on what the state says. And that instrument determines which way water's flowing and how long. So if it's flowing this way for a while and then flowing this way for a while, it will record all that. So you plug native water chemistry around you, you plug water chemistry from the pipe that's going to discharge, and you plug duration of flow in different directions all into the model. It'll tell you how far away from that pipe you have to go before it's diluted to an acceptable level. That's what core mix modeling does. So it requires a lot of effort. I would like to say, based on this discussion that I'm hearing from you, that I understand your concern about establishing this level, but what concerns me about your system is this real high producing well number one. It's producing 1,000 gallons a minute. That's well three. 1.5 million gallons of water a day at about 1,000 GPM. That's 1.5 million. What happens if that well goes out in the middle of the summer? It takes a month to fix it. Can you think about all the issues that you're facing, but integrate into your plan the wells that you know you're going to need in the future into your plan now while you're dealing with these other issues? To me, that's a paramount issue.
I heard you when you told us that months ago, and I followed up and asked about that at several of our meetings, why we weren't going ahead with a well construction.
Well,
I'm not saying that's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the work that Brad has done with the well contractor, we've basically refurbished a couple of our wells. Well number one, when we were here a year ago with Senator Hannig, we were talking about production of 150 gallons a minute. We now have it up to 320, but we've got, with that new 40 horsepower submersible pump, we know we can do 500 gallons a minute, maybe a little more, but our state application is for 500 gallons a minute. Well 2, a year ago, it was at 650 gallons per minute. It's now at 700 gallons per minute. So when we get 1A to 500 and well 2 is 700, we'll have 1,200 gallons a minute that could offset if something went wrong with 3.
But you don't get the rest of those wells anymore until the new well is fixed. So you want to run them simultaneously for as long as it takes to fix the well. That's the issue that I have with the current plan. I'm just saying, while you're contemplating all these issues with respect to core mix modeling, setting this health standard, thinking about the treatment technology, you know that it's paramount that you have additional water supply.
And we've also put in a new replacement, what's the horsepower on well 3? 100. We've got a brand new submersible. So we are building up our confidence in our well field, both significantly on well 1 and well 3, where a year ago, it really was scary to think if we lost well 3, we'd be in dire straits. We're in a much better position now than we were 12 months ago.
At this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have been appropriated money from the state to put in 2 new wells, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're already going to put 2 new wells in as it stands right now for production. What we're truly just talking about here is possibly adding maybe 2 more in this as well as a filtration system.
But not immediately.
Yeah,
We've got 2 budgeted right now through SR 134.
That's right.
Those were grant funds, and the engineering report has been prepared and now it's getting submitted to the state.
Yep.
And then once that gets approved, then we can take that contract.
Yeah.
But there's some more study work that needs to be done with Dr. Sproul before we pick that magic point where we want to.
I understand, and that we got to
you're
go
right,
through all
we've
the
got money for
processes
2
and all that kind of good stuff
large
like that.
production.
Just stick with me here for a minute. So we've been appropriated to put in these 2 new wells. We'll find a spot, great, we'll put them in there where they need to go. We have an issue now within the county that we are dealing with as far as the high fluoride levels. And what we're here today to figure out is what is the stance of this board of where we want to be with the fluoride levels in this county, so that way they can design a system to meet our requirements. we should not be designing a system that just meets our requirements of today, because it's been 40-plus years since this time that this county has spent any real money on our water system in this for a long, long time. It's older than I am. And so what we should be planning for is exactly what Dr. Sproul has here, is what is it going to be 40 years from now? Yeah, I mean, it's a shot in the dark as far as what Gates County is really going to be from 40 years from now, because of all the pressures that we have from outside to do expand and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you have to be ready for it and have the infrastructure in place, because a lot of the things that our county lacks today, or we don't get a chance to participate in, is because we don't have the utility system to be able to support the need for other jobs and those type of things like that. So that is what we should be looking for, is be able to expand a system that can allow our county to have the opportunity. So if, hey, maybe one day a manufacturing plant may want to come to the outskirts of the county and build a building that we can put people to work for. Right now, we couldn't give them enough water to be able to run their plant. We're having to run a whole 12-inch line over here to the sawmill, so that way our largest employer can continue to operate, so we can have enough water for them. So that's what we really need to be focusing on, is where we are at 40 years from now, and going at a 0.7 is fine, because, okay, let's just say that we don't really need a 0.7 and it ends up being a 1 is fine. Then we have the capacity at that point in time built into the system where we can mix more raw water if the need be.
And I agree with you, because it was said if we went for 0.7, it was recommended to go for 0.5. So if we're wanting for 1, 0.7 seems like a reasonable midline based on what was presented, right? Because you were saying to aim low. If we were going for a 0.7, it would make sense to pass it up 0.5. So if we're going for a 1, 0.7 seems to be that comparable number to move forward with, as is listed here.
You can argue any amount of fluoride that you take out of your raw water is going to be some movement toward being more protective of public health.
Right.
The point of it is you need to confer maybe with your regional, the Albemarle health people, and maybe some other public health people in that field. But based on what we know right now, that's what's recommended. And to get back, Commissioner Forsythe, to your, there's two really important pieces of the pilot. Number one is to know what the water quality is going to be and the hardware it's going to require to get the water down. The second thing is that Dr. Sproul brought up, and when we do the core mix modeling, we got to know what the chemical constituents are in the water that we got to disperse wherever that receiving stream that we select to be at. We cannot do the final calculations until we know what those chemical constituents are in that concentrate. Okay. Concentrate in RO terms is backwash water.
Right.
All right?
So, I mean, at this point, we are at the 5:15 mark. We have a regular meeting at 6 o'clock. If we're going to move forward with any action, we probably need to talk about the action that we're going to move forward with.
I'll say up front, I would support A1. I don't support a 0.7 because I don't think there's really a regulatory requirement for 0.7 to clean it down to. In the future, I wholeheartedly agree. As far as the future goes, building a facility that allows for addition would be good enough.
I'm just telling you.
I'm making a motion, if we're going to set a limit, it'd be 1 milligram per liter, and they build the facility, allow for it to be expandable. Adding additional membranes can lower it as we needed or as future growth demands.
If we want to build it to be a 1, your design would be a 0.7 at max flow?
Hand me my phone, it's ready. I got to cut it off, I apologize.
You're all right.
I got it on silent, but it rings through my ears anyway. Will you direct that question to me, Commissioner?
Yeah, so if the county commissioners decided tonight that we're going to target a 1, would green engineering design point be like a 0.7 at max flow?
Well, you always want to design conservative to your target. So you'll have the ability to always meet the target.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if y'all are, if this board decides that 1 milligram per liter of fluoride in the drinking water is acceptable and good public health for your people, then that's what we would need to know to be able to design to that. That triggers everything else that we put on the board. I can't make that decision. I can make my own recommendation, but it's your county, it's your water system, and you have to answer to your voters.
Yeah.
What does green engineering recommend?
What do we recommend?
What level?
That you meet and exceed the target in North Carolina
Which is?
is
Point
0.7.
seven, which is, I mean, that's where my head is at with it, is point
We're
seven.
not telling you got to do that. We're just saying that that's what we recommend to our clients. We got some clients that want to quit adding fluoride. They're asking us, what do we need to do to remove it? In fact, you've got an email from Jamie Midget in your, the draft report that I give you has got a lot more background information. And the PowerPoint's just kind of a cliff note presentation. But Dr. Sproul and I and Leah, we wrestle with this, you know. The county has to decide what their public health goal is. We can't do that for you. We shouldn't do that for you.
All right, so right now, we do have a motion on the floor for 1. So at this point, I guess, before we move forward with more conversation, it would be appropriate to say, does that have a second, or?
Well, under our current rules, there's no second
Right.
required. Under our existing rules, there's no requirement for a second. We've been talking about this. There's no requirement for a second.
Yeah, there isn't.
Okay, well, I mean, if y'all want to call to point at this point, but I mean, just saying, like, the discussion with it, go ahead with your,
I would like
Commissioner
to,
Roundtree.
so we, can you have 2 competing motions on the
No.
floor? Okay, so we have to.
not. So Commissioner Roundtree was going to go, and
Yeah.
then we'll ask Craddock, kind of go down the line with those that haven't spoken. Okay.
Yes, I don't think we should compromise our constituents' health. If it's 0.7 is what is expected, that should be achieved, because we're looking at fluorosis, looking
Right.
at cognitive health.
Right,
So 0.7 is where I'm leaning towards.
all right. Commissioner Craddock.
Of course, I want the best for our citizens, but I just feel like I need the pilot test to be done so I can make my final decision.
Okay, so at this point, we
Can I
can
make
do
a
the
comment
call.
since we're in the discussion part? I made the motion, but if we're going to.
Oh, we've been discussing since.
I know.
So
Well,
I
mean,
feel like you've
again,
had a couple comebacks there.
But the point I keep stressing, nobody's reading it here, and I've seen this in the news and read it. The 0.7 level is if you're adding fluoride, that's what the dentists are arguing about and saying, hey, we want to at least be at least 7. A lot of them are saying 0.5 or whatever, but that's about for adding fluoride to it. The reduction part is separate. When you're having too much fluoride and the reduction you're getting down to, what EPA is, what I've read a lot of lately, is that they're saying they want to get it to where you have to remove it down to 1. And we're applying a addition level to what is not a reduction level. We're comparing apples to oranges here. And I respectfully, I pointed out to start with, your own comments right here say U.S. public health goal systems for adding fluoride is now recommending 0.7 maximum. That's an addition. We're not adding fluoride, folks. We're taking it out. And so we're going to clean it down further. And believe me, I think it's great. For 13 years of records, at least, we've had it at 0.2 or 2.7. If we get it down to 1, we've reduced it by, what does that work out to be, 60% reduction? That's great. And if we say we want to go further, or if EPA drops it to 0.5, great, we can put it in another train and do it from there. I just hate to see us set an arbitrarily low value that, I'm telling you, I'm going to go home and check the internet and 1,000 other places, and I know this is what it's going to say, at least unless something's changed or unless North Carolina is totally different than the rest of the industry. So, okay, I'll shut up. I swear I won't
We
say
have
it.
a couple options here. We can call to vote. We have to call to vote. We have a motion on the floor unless you withdraw the motion. We could do it tonight, or as he said, it could come back next month after further research if you want to do that. So whichever way we want to proceed, do you want to withdraw the motion, or do you want to proceed with the vote for the motion?
I'll withdraw it, but my point is I'd like to feel comfortable
Okay.
with what we're voting on.
So were we comfortable tabling this until the next meeting so that we can look further into that 1 number?
Yes.
Or does anyone else want to make a motion before we end?
And I should, we invited Mr. Jamie Midget. He was at your meeting in February. He had committed to be here today. He's the regional water quality person who could help we had also tried to get the head of the NPDES permitting group that we spoke to on a conference call. They were unavailable to even send a representative. So certainly there's more folks that
Yeah.
could bring more clarity and background information, especially when you layer that on the RO
Right.
pilot test that you'll have.
I mean, personally, I would like to table it if we're not all comfortable with the same thing.
I would also
So-
recommend that you confer with your regional health, that the Albemarle Regional Health. I think they have a lot of good input on this issue.
Sounds good. No, we thank you. I think it was great information today. I think, I
Great
feel.
discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
great discussion, great information. And we will strive for an October decision on that number. So,
Thank you, Madam
thank you,
Chair,
sir.
members of the board.
Thank you for your time, I really appreciate that.
Appreciate
Thank you
you.
for all of y'all's time being here.
All right. So at this time, then, we are coming to a close with the discussion items. So we will need a motion to adjourn
So move.
and a second.
Second.
And all in favor? All right. We are adjourned. See you at 6 o'clock.
You know, mine's been sinking too. It's like the pistons are.